Come on! Come on, come on! Hello!
We are sisters, Julia and Anastasia, and 3 years ago we began a journey to live a life in perfect harmony with nature. A life caring for animals, planting trees, and nurturing the earth. It's funny because in this time, nature has taught us that perfect harmony isn't really attainable. We've learnt that things will be messy, unpredictable, and sometimes it'll all feel like too much. But nature has taught us the most, that the beauty will always outweigh the hard. We grew up in these mountains, watching the seasons change in the rainforest, seeing the stillness of the mountains in the movement of time. Our journey started a long time ago. In the 60s, our grandparents moved here with a dream to grow tropical fruit and create an ever-evolving food forest. A paradise where everywhere you look, fruit grows, waterfalls flow, and animals roam. Then our parents cared for the farm and planted so many more trees. A few years ago, our dad died, and we realized that it was our turn to care for this land and to stand alongside our mum on this journey, to plant new orchards and to regenerate the earth. One of the hardest things that we faced was the fact that he was no longer here to teach us how to build, how to care for the land, or to pass on the stories of each tree that he planted. But we realized that the stories of our grandparents and dad are held in this land, and that all of their knowledge and skills that they acquired from their lifetimes of caring for this landscape are within us. If we stand back and watch the swaying leaves, the setting sun, or the animals' soft eyes, nature can teach us everything that we need to know. In the last 3 years since we moved home, we've faced lots of ups and downs, struggles and hardships, but we've also realized the meaning that this life holds for us, and that we wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. We've planted so many trees, watched new animals be born, and seen the land transform. In the simplicity, the slowness, and the calm, we've learnt so much about ourselves. Watching the way that nature interacts, we've been inspired to create systems on the farm that mimic nature. The farm is split into 5 systems: the soil, the gardens, the trees, the animals, and us. But each of these is connected in more ways than we could ever imagine. It was only a year ago that we started this garden, and before that it was a patch overrun with lantana, a noxious weed that spreads through the rainforest. In this last year, we have learnt so much about gardening, and we've seen the landscape transform. This area started as a fun project, a place for the boy ducks to live, and an experiment in growing flowers. It started as a patch of weeds, and now we're proud to have made a healthy pollinated garden. An organic flower and veggie permaculture paradise. Food is such an important element of our life here. To grow our own food and know exactly where it comes from. To eat seasonally and be nurtured by the trees that we care for. We still have such a long way to go, but it feels so incredible to grow what we can.
This simple routine of gardening has honestly changed my life so much. A year ago, I didn't really garden, and slowly, this garden has just, I don't know, it's just shown me so much. It's taught me everything. I think that the world can be really fast-paced sometimes and things can be stressful. You can always be engaged by something. So I think that in that world, it's really important to let yourself slow down, let yourself come to the garden and just focus on one thing, like growing a flower or watching your tomatoes ripen. And I think that it changes your life more than you'd ever know. Every morning I come down here, and even if it's only for 5 minutes, I weed the garden, or I cuddle the ducks, or I look at the exciting new blooms that have happened in the garden. I pick the flowers and I take them home, or I check on how the veggies are going. And I think that simplicity of that routine of watching things that I grew with my own hands, I think that that's just so incredible.
The garden interacts with the whole farm. The animals play such an integral part. The ducks eat bugs and pests, but honestly, they eat a fair few veggies while they're at it, so they're not allowed in unless they're supervised. But in their night pens, they poo, and we collect this as fertilizer and compost, nourishing the soil and the plants. Using permaculture and syntropic practices, the garden interacts with the surrounding fruit trees. Observing nature, we can see that trees, shrubs, ground covers, and root vegetables all grow together, working symbiotically. Listening to these natural principles, we can adapt this in our food forest, watching nature interact seamlessly. Our grandparents planted so many tropical fruit trees so long ago, and more recently, our parents planted more. The rainforest is filled with kiwis, guavas, lychees, mangoes, black sapotes, citrus, jaboticarpas, jambu, and avocados. These trees always act as a reminder of our roots, and as a connection to those who have passed. Each year, the seasonal fruit returns and nourishes us, and we are reminded of the many years before when our parents or grandparents would have planted these trees. It's incredible to be nourished by them in this way, and to see how an action so many years before can still hold so much purpose and meaning. Last year, we started planting a new orchard, full of limes, lemons, oranges, avocados, and figs.
We planted this orchard a year ago now, and we planted all of these trees out, and most of them have grown really well, but we do need to care for them a little bit. This one looks like it needs a bit of fertilizer. We might put some compost on it. It's turned into a bit of a jungle down here, and it's very snaky season, so... They can't hear, but they can feel vibrations, right? There's a big python that lives on this hill somewhere. He always steals eggs and things like that, so I'm just scared I'm gonna run into him, but I haven't seen him yet.
We're trying to learn from the generations before us, who planted trees for the future. They planted trees not to experience the fruit themselves, but to nourish whoever would come next. I think that this simple way of thinking could change the world, if only humankind could think further than their individual lives. If we could focus away from the meaningless things like collecting wealth or consuming useless technology, but instead if we could think forward to the future.
There's a rainbow behind you!
If we could nurture the earth for the next generations. As we plant orchards or care for the land, we always think of the old Greek proverb that says that the true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you will never expect to sit. I think that the animals have taught us the most. A few years ago we had some sheep and chickens, but slowly and all at once we now live with this big family of ducks and goats and chicken and sheep. But they aren't just sweet companions, they do so much. Their role in the regenerative systems is so important. The animals have taught us to always give more than we take. They are nourished by the earth, and in return they fertilize the soil, they eat invasive weeds, and they eat bugs and pests. This reciprocity is so obvious within every element of the way that animals live. Magnolia the goat was a teeny scrawny baby when she first came to the farm. She couldn't get enough milk from her mum, so we took her on and gave her so much love. We cuddled her every day and we showed her our love and care, and slowly she transformed from a shy and scrawny goat to a loving mother. We gave her our love and she passed it back, to us, to the land, and to her baby. The animals are integral to the success of the orchards. They love eating weeds that aren't native to this area, so naturally they clear invasive weeds, allowing native plants and fruit trees to thrive. They also love snacking on any fallen fruit, and this means that we can avoid rotting fruit and fruit fly. We use rotational grazing, moving their paddocks almost every day. This means that they stay healthy and avoid worms. We have learnt that our role on the farm is reciprocal in every way. We care for the animals, and in return they care for us so much. We give them our love, our safety and our care, and it is all passed back. Their love is immediately returned in the form of cuddles, kisses and snuggles, but their care is also returned in the way that their love cares for us, but also in the way that they care for the land. We build predator-proof pens for them to sleep in each night. This routine of putting them to bed and letting them out takes hours. But they pass back a different kind of safety. The ducks always spot the predators first. They quack as loud as they can, and they sound a bit like a car alarm. They have spotted deadly snakes or goannas or pythons before, and they've always warned us before we could even spot them. But I think that mostly their love is passed back as pure joy, and that joy is contagious. As they bounce and skip and dance to the next paddock, they always bring a smile to our faces.
Come on! Come on, come on! When the sheep are in this mood, which I guess is their spring to summer mood, they just can't be told what to do and they bounce backwards and forwards. Oh no, here they're coming again! Anyway, the sheep just choose their own paddock when it's like this. We cannot tell them where to go. They bounce on all four hooves and they just bounce to wherever they want to go, backwards and forwards until they find their favourite paddock, which today is the one with the mulberry tree in it.
Something that we are learning is that as we care for the land, we also need to let the land care for us. Sometimes we need to slow down. We need to feel the nurturing water in our skin, or to sit still under the mountains. We just need to play like a child in a stream. Sometimes things can feel like too much, everything is overwhelming, and the lists of jobs for us to do just seem impossible. But to just sit and feel the simplicity of the cool water in our skin, it lets us see the bigger picture. Suddenly you can feel the land's care, the soft healing touch of the water or the magic of the swaying leaves. Suddenly you have so much clarity and purpose. You can see the beauty of nature and understand why it's so important to protect it. This is where it all comes back to soil. Healthy soils dictate the health of the gardens, the trees, animals, the landscape, and in turn, us. The garden relies on healthy soil to thrive, but the garden also cultivates healthy soils. Plants can heal the earth, green mulches can control weeds, bring nutrients, and retain moisture. Comfrey's 2-meter root system can bring nutrients from below the ground, nourishing the soil and the surrounding plants. By nourishing the soil, we can capture carbon, cultivate microorganisms, and foster a healthy environment. If we can reciprocate the care that the land gives us, we can work towards healing the earth. The soil works in with every element on the farm, as simply as rich soils growing healthy food in the garden, or more complex things, like how unhealthy soils that are deficient of nutrients promote worm burden in animals, or how the soil affects our own health. There are natural antidepressants in the microbes of the soil. One of the ways that we cultivate healthy soils is composting. Underneath the goat's night pen, manure and bedding fall. We started a project a few months ago to turn this area into a compost bay. We collect the manure, straw, kitchen scraps, leaf matter from the forests, cardboard and lawn clippings. Once a week we've been turning it. And now we have a healthy compost ready for nourishing the trees and flowers. We've also been working on a big project to renew the soils in our mum's garden. This garden was full of weeds and the soil was worn out, so we've been observing, experimenting and adapting. We've been working with the chickens. We started by taking away the old garden beds. Then we fenced the yard and let the chickens scratch up the soil, adding mulch and dolomite. They've been scratching up the weeds, fertilizing the soil, and while they do it, they are naturally creating their own compost by layering mulches, scraps, grasses, and poop. Our mum has also been raising some sweet little chicks who will eventually live in the community garden, rotating between the gardens and supplementing the soils. It's been incredible to watch them grow and see them intuitively work with the land.
It is so big! Are you ready for a big day in the garden?
I think that the most important lesson that our dad taught us before he died was that we are able to do anything or learn any skill, no matter how daunting, intimidating, or scary. If we step back and observe, slowly work our way through each problem, and listen to our intuition, we can do anything. It's been hard, and we've faced things that we couldn't have imagined. We've watched fires engulf the mountains, floods fill the valleys. The climate crisis means that these events have become so extreme. Droughts like never before have dried the rainforest, then bushfires have threatened the farm twice. In the last few years, we've experienced 2 once-in-500-year floods. We've seen the community be absolutely devastated by these unthinkable disasters. In February, every road was washed away. Most of our fences were destroyed, and it felt like all of our achievements crumbled. These things can be so overwhelming, but then, on a slow afternoon in the garden or a soft moment in the rainforest stream, you gain perspective. Looking back over the past few years, we have achieved so much. We've fenced goat paddocks in the middle of the dense rainforest. We've made art. We built a studio to live in, sewn our own clothes, planted trees, grown our own food, planted pollinated gardens, regenerated the land, cared for so many animals, built tree houses for the joy, established orchards for the future, and worked as hard as we can to care for this beautiful land. There is still so much to do and so much to learn along the way, but we are so honoured to care for this patch of earth and excited to see what happens next. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We live on the land of the Arakwal and Minjungbal People of the Bundjalung Nation. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country that we live on and recognize their continuing connection to the land and waters. We thank them for protecting this rainforest and its ecosystems since time immemorial. The support of our patrons helps so much, and we are honoured by this community and so proud to connect with so many incredible people.